The silence at the dinner table that night was a living thing, heavy and suffocating. It pressed down on me, amplifying the bitter truth I tried so long to ignore. I was still an outsider, a ghost at my own family's feast. My carefully constructed success, the life I'd forged far from this suffocating town, had bought me nothing but a front-row seat to my own invisibility. The words that finally ripped free from my throat would ignite a blaze that forever altered our family's landscape. Growing up as the youngest in a bustling household, I always felt like a character in a play I hadn't been cast in. My mother, Eleanor, possessed a talent for making her preferences starkly clear, and I was never the lead. Serafina, my eldest sister, was the golden child. Her life, a perfect tapestry woven with an early marriage to her high school sweetheart, 3 beautiful children, and a home just down the road, was Eleanor's definition of womanhood. Devoted, wife, loving mother, and always available for mother. Then there was Beatrice, my middle sister, whose career as a registered nurse filled Eleanor with effusive pride. Beatrice worked grueling hospital shifts yet still managed weekly visits, grocery runs, and household help. My brother, Reese, was the family prince, the youngest boy who could do no wrong. His college dropout phase became practical, his return home after a broken engagement, smart financial planning, and his wedding a neighborhood spectacle, all under Eleanor's approving gaze. And then there was me, Ilara, the dreamer, the one who craved more than our small Ohio town could offer, the daughter deemed too ambitious, too detached from family values. From my teenage years, I yearned to build a life beyond these familiar streets, to carve out a career in marketing that touched millions. But every mention of my aspirations was met with Eleanor's dismissive shake of the head. "That's nice, honey, but don't forget what really matters." My college graduation brought questions about grandchildren, my first job concerns about finding a husband, and my move to a bustling metropolis, Chicago, was greeted with a silence that screamed disapproval. The day I left, Eleanor's hug was a hollow gesture, as if she mourned a daughter already lost. Serafina called me selfish. Beatrice offered a polite wish of luck, reminding me of jobs closer to home. Only Reese seemed genuinely excited, a flicker of understanding that made the parting even harder. Those first months in Chicago were a crucible of loneliness. My Sunday calls home, meant to share triumphs, felt like shouts into a void. Eleanor would relay updates on Serafina's children, Beatrice's hospital dramas, Reese's business progress, before asking a cursory question about my life, quickly pivoting back to more important family matters. Over time, the calls dwindled from weekly to monthly, then to holiday greetings, eventually just birthdays. It hurt too much to sit at that distant table, feeling invisible while their lives were lauded. But this time, I thought it would be different. I was returning as a testament to my own success, a narrative they couldn't possibly ignore. I had climbed the corporate ladder, now a marketing director at a Fortune 500 company, leading a substantial team, commanding budgets that dwarfed our hometown's annual spending. My salary was significant, my apartment overlooked the shimmering lake, and I just closed a deal that would breathe life into the Midwest economy. When Eleanor's voice, tinged with a warmth I hadn't heard in years, invited me home for the holiday, hope surged through me. She spoke of the entire family gathering, of Serafina's children asking for their Aunt Ilara. I dared to believe my achievements had finally earned me a place. I spared no expense. Lavish gifts for everyone. A cutting-edge tablet for Eleanor, gaming consoles and art supplies for Serafina's children, a luxurious spa retreat for the ever-working Beatrice, and elegant kitchen appliances for Reese and his wife Lyra. I booked a first-class flight, rented a sleek, black luxury sedan, a statement, I hoped, of my newfound stature. My hair was professionally styled, my outfit chosen to exude quiet confidence. The night before my flight, I confided in Isolde, my closest friend, bubbling with excitement. She, who had witnessed every family slight, offered a gentle caution. "Ilara, your success is incredible, but people rarely change overnight. It doesn't guarantee they'll suddenly see you differently." I brushed off her words. "Isolde, when they see my financial stability, my ability to not only care for myself but also help them, they'll have to respect it. Money changes perceptions, whether we like it or not." Yet, a quiet voice in my mind whispered doubt. As I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, the familiar sight stirred a complex mix of nostalgia and apprehension. The faded blue siding, the perpetually untamed garden, the leaning mailbox, all unchanged. This house, once a fortress in my young mind, now seemed small, tired. But I was home, successful, and ready, I believed, to finally claim my rightful place. Eleanor opened the door, her smile genuine, her favorite cardigan draped over her. "Ilara, sweetheart, you made it." Her hug was fleeting, her gaze assessing. "You look different. Very professional." I chose to interpret it as a compliment. Serafina, frazzled but smiling, emerged from the kitchen. Children, Leo, Iris, Daisy in tow. Beatrice arrived in her scrubs, giving me a knowing look when I mentioned my first-class flight. "Well, aren't you fancy now?" she quipped. Then Rhys and Lyra appeared, Rhys's hug the warmest I'd received all day. "Man, it's good to see you, Ilara." "Lyra, this is my little sister, the one who moved to the big city." Lyra's shy smile warmed me. "Rhys talks about you all the time. He's so proud of what you've accomplished." A tiny seed of hope began to sprout. The gifts were presented, each met with varying degrees of muted appreciation. Eleanor found the tablet expensive. Serafina deemed the children's presents too much. Beatrice loved the spa package, but immediately fretted about finding time to use it. Rhys and Lyra were grateful, though Lyra murmured about their apartment's small kitchen. I tried to steer the conversation towards my work, my promotions, the creation of hundreds of jobs in their own state. "That's nice, dear," Eleanor murmured, her attention already on Serafina's children. Beatrice offered a polite "sounds important," while Serafina, distracted, added, "That's great, Ilara. Sounds like you're making a name for yourself." Her tone, though not overtly dismissive, carried an unspoken judgment, a subtle suggestion that my success wasn't the kind that truly mattered. The conversation drifted, flowing around me like a river around a stone. Serafina's PDA meeting, Beatrice's remarkable patient recovery, Rhys's latest construction project. Their lives were celebrated, mine a mere footnote. In a desperate, misguided attempt to prove my worth, I blurted out an offer. "Mother, I've noticed the house could use some repairs. The front steps, the leaking roof. I'd love to cover the costs, easily." The room went quiet. Eleanor's expression was unreadable. Serafina's eyebrows shot up. "Ilara," Eleanor said slowly, her voice laced with ice, "we don't need charity." "It's not charity," I retorted, my cheeks burning. "It's family helping family. I'm doing well, and I want to invest in keeping this house nice." "We manage just fine without your money," Eleanor snapped, her voice hardening. "We've been taking care of this house since before you were born." "I know that, Mother. I just thought—" "You thought what?" Serafina interjected. "That because you make good money, we're suddenly helpless?" I was stunned. My gesture of love, of support, had been twisted into condescension. The afternoon dissolved into strained pleasantries. Isolde had been right. My success hadn't changed their perception. It had, if anything, made it worse. As the evening descended, the unspoken tension thickened. Serafina, moving with proprietorial ease in Eleanor's kitchen, politely but firmly declined my offer of help. "Thanks, but I've got a system going. You're not familiar with how Mother likes things done anyway." The sting was sharp. This was the kitchen where I had learned to cook, where I had spent countless hours during my childhood. Beatrice set the table, laying out 7 place settings. 7. I counted. Eleanor, Serafina, Beatrice, Rhys, Lyra, myself, and Serafina's 3 children. That was 8 people, but only 7 chairs. "Beatrice, I think you missed a place setting," I said, trying to keep my voice light. She looked at the table, counted, then met my gaze. "Oh, right. Well, the kids are eating at the coffee table. So, 5 adult settings, plus Serafina. I guess you can use the small chair from the kitchen." The small chair, a wooden stool from my childhood, barely reaching the table. I waited, my stomach churning, for her to realize the implication. But she merely turned to fold napkins. "Actually," I said, my voice carefully controlled, "I prefer to sit at the main table." "The kitchen chair is fine, Ilara," Serafina called from the kitchen. "It's just for one night. Just for one night." as if my presence was a temporary inconvenience. A cold dread settled in my stomach. They hadn't prepared for me. Not truly. They'd invited me, expected me, but they hadn't actually made space. My gifts, my success, my earnings, none of it had earned me a proper seat at my own family's table. Perched on that humiliating stool, slightly lower, slightly outside the circle of conversation, the symbolism was potent. Was it intentional, or simply thoughtlessly cruel? The dinner conversation flowed around me, a current I couldn't breach. Serafina's volunteer work, Eleanor's proud praise of her devotion, Beatrice's heroic hospital stories, Eleanor's admiration for her real service, Reese's honest construction work, Eleanor's nod to building something real, something that matters. I waited for my turn, for a question about my life. But the current swept on, carrying local gossip, family updates, school activities. Finally, I interjected. I have some exciting news about work. My team just completed a campaign that will create 200 new manufacturing jobs right here in Ohio and Michigan. It's the biggest project I've ever managed. The table quieted, their gazes polite but distant. Eleanor sighed. That's nice, dear, but you know, money isn't everything. There are more important things. Serafina nodded. Some people lose sight of what truly matters when they get caught up in corporate success. The words felt like a slap. This isn't about money. I cried, my voice rising. This is about creating jobs for real families, helping communities grow. How is that different from what everyone else is doing? Well, Beatrice said carefully, it's just that your work is so distant. You're in Chicago, making decisions about people you've never met. We're here, actually interacting with the people we're helping. The implication hung heavy. Their local, personal work was real. Mine, on a larger scale, was less valuable. Anger flared. Before I could retort, Reese surprised me. Actually, what Alara does sounds pretty important. I mean, creating jobs is creating jobs, right? For a moment, a flicker of gratitude. But then Serafina laughed. Oh, Reese, you're so sweet. But there's a difference between caring about people and caring about profit margins. That's when something inside me snapped. I'd been sending money home for years, helping them in ways they didn't even comprehend, and they sat here, lecturing me about caring for people versus profit. Since we're talking about caring about people, I said, my voice dangerously calm, perhaps I should mention that I've been caring about this family financially for quite some time now. The table went still. Eleanor looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, I've been sending money home every month for the past 2 years, helping with expenses you apparently didn't think were important enough to mention or acknowledge. Serafina dropped her fork. What kind of expenses? I could have stopped, but years of feeling invisible, combined with the indignity of that kitchen stool, pushed me past my breaking point. Oh, you know, little things, I said, sarcasm dripping. Like the electric bill, the water bill, the internet Beatrice's kids use when they visit Grandma, the money I send every month, so Mother can buy groceries without worrying about her fixed income. The silence was deafening. Everyone stared, shock morphing into dawning comprehension. Eleanor was the first to speak, her voice trembling with a quiet fury. How dare you? She stood, hands flat against the table, leaning towards me. How dare you sit there and throw money in our faces like we're some kind of charity case? You think because you send money, you can buy yourself a place in this family? You think your money makes you better than us? I tried to speak, but she wasn't finished. 4 years, you've been too busy to call, too important to visit, too successful to care about our lives. And now you waltz in here with your expensive gifts and your fancy car and your corporate success story, acting like you're doing us a favor by gracing us with your presence. Serafina nodded vigorously. Exactly, Alara. You've always been like this. Always thought you were smarter than us, better than our simple lives. That's not true. I protested, but Beatrice cut me off. Isn't it? You moved away, cut off contact, and now you think you can buy your way back into our good graces. I felt like I was drowning, every attempt to help twisted into something ugly, manipulative. I never wanted to buy anything. I choked out, my voice breaking. I just wanted to help. I thought if I could make things easier for Mother, if I could contribute financially the way I couldn't when I was younger. Nobody asked you to, Eleanor said coldly. Nobody needed your money. We were doing just fine before you decided to play the role of family savior. Reese shifted uncomfortably. Lyra looked desperate to disappear. The distant laughter of the children felt obscenely cheerful against the dining room's hostility. But here's the thing, I said, standing up from that humiliating stool, my voice gaining strength. You weren't doing just fine. The electric company doesn't care about your pride, Mother. Neither does the landlord. Serafina gasped. Landlord! That's when I realized they didn't know. They had no idea the true extent of my contributions. You didn't tell them? I asked Eleanor, genuinely astonished. You didn't tell them you've been behind on rent for over a year, that I've been paying it to keep you from getting evicted? Color drained from Eleanor's face. Serafina looked between us, her expression a mix of horror and disbelief. That's impossible, Beatrice whispered. Mother owns this house. No, I said quietly. She doesn't. She hasn't for years. She had to sell it to pay for medical bills after her surgery, the one she didn't want to worry any of you about because you all have your own families to take care of. The silence was so complete, I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. She's been renting it back from the new owners, I continued. And when she fell behind on rent because her Social Security doesn't cover everything, she called me. She asked me to help, just temporarily, just until she got back on her feet. I looked directly at Eleanor. Except it wasn't temporary, was it? It's been every month for years. Utilities, groceries, insurance. I've been covering it all because you said you were too proud to ask the others for help. Serafina's face was white. Mother, is this true? Eleanor couldn't meet her eyes. It wasn't supposed to be permanent. I thought I could manage. But you couldn't manage. Beatrice cried, her voice rising. You could have asked us. We could have helped. Could you? I challenged. Beatrice, you're supporting yourself on a nurse's salary. Serafina, you're raising 3 kids on one income because you can't work full-time with Leo's special needs. Reese, you're just starting your business with Lyra. Could any of you have actually covered over $1,000 a month in rent, plus utilities, plus groceries? The math hit them like a physical blow. The amount I'd been contributing was more than most of them made in disposable income. I didn't ask for help to make you feel guilty, I said, my voice strengthening. I helped because I love this family, because I wanted Mother to have security, because I thought maybe if I could contribute in a meaningful way, I'd finally have a place here. But Eleanor was beyond explanations, beyond reason. She stared at me with a mixture of humiliation and rage, her voice ice cold when she finally spoke. You want a place in this family, she hissed, pointing directly at me. Well, let me tell you something, Ilara. You don't deserve a seat at this table. You think your money makes you important, but all it makes you is manipulative. You held this over our heads, made us dependent on you, so you could feel superior. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. That's not what happened. I cried. Isn't it? Serafina chimed in, her voice shrill. You disappear from our lives, then secretly pay our bills, so you can throw it in our faces when we don't appreciate you enough. I never threw it in anyone's face until this moment. I roared, my own anger finally breaking free. I never mentioned it, never used it as leverage, never made anyone feel guilty about it. I did it quietly, without expectation of praise or gratitude, because that's what family does for each other. No, Eleanor said, standing again and pointing. Family shows up. Family calls. Family cares about more than just writing checks. You don't deserve a seat at this table because you haven't earned it. Money doesn't buy you love, and it doesn't buy you a family. The room spun. Years of hoping for acceptance, years of financial sacrifice, and it all came down to this. I was still the outsider, still the daughter who didn't belong. But as I stood there, looking at the faces of people I had tried so desperately to please, something shifted inside me. The hurt was still there, but beneath it, a stronger force emerged, clarity. I looked at each of them, and I realized something profound. They were right about one thing. Money couldn't buy me a place in this family. But they were wrong about everything else. I stood straighter, my voice calm and clear when I spoke. You're absolutely right, Mother. I don't deserve a seat at this table. I paused, letting that sink in. But then again, neither do any of you. The shock on their faces was immediate. You want to talk about earning a place, about showing up, about caring? I continued. Then stop eating the food I pay for. My words hung in the air like a bomb that had just exploded. I saw the exact moment they realized I wasn't backing down, wasn't apologizing, wasn't shrinking back into the role of the grateful daughter. My act was not one of spite, but a fierce declaration of self-worth, echoing sentiments found in articles discussing healthy family dynamics. Drawing firm boundaries within a family, though often challenging, is not an act of separation but a necessary step towards fostering healthier, more respectful relationships, as it teaches others how they are expected to treat you. I pulled out my phone, my hand surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "What are you doing?" Eleanor asked, and for the first time all evening, uncertainty tinged her voice. "I'm calling my bank," I said, scrolling through my contacts. "I'm canceling every automatic payment I've set up for this household." Serafina stood quickly. "Elara, don't be ridiculous." But I was already dialing. "Hi, this is Elara Morrison. I need to cancel several automatic payments immediately." "Elara, hang up the phone," Eleanor pleaded, panic creeping into her voice. "Yes, I'll hold," I said to the representative, then looked directly at my mother. "Mother, you said nobody asked for my money, right? That you were doing just fine without it. Well, now you can prove it." Beatrice grabbed my arm. "This is crazy. You're being childish." I gently pulled my arm away. "Yes, I'm here. I need to cancel the automatic rent payment to Morrison Property Management. Over $1,000 monthly. Yes, effective immediately." Eleanor sank back into her chair. "You can't do this. The electric bill payment to Ohio Edison, hundreds monthly." I continued into the phone. "And the grocery allowance payment to Eleanor Morrison, hundreds monthly." "Elara, please," Serafina cried, real fear in her voice now. "Think about what you're doing." "I am thinking," I said, holding up a finger as the bank representative confirmed the cancellations. The internet and cable payment to Spectrum, the car insurance payment for Reese Morrison, the insurance that keeps you legal to drive to your construction jobs, the insurance Mother asked me to cover because you were struggling to get your business off the ground. Reese's face went white. As I hung up, the silence was deafening. Everyone stared at me as if I had just burned the house down. "There," I said, putting my phone back in my purse. "Problem solved. No more money from the daughter who doesn't deserve a seat at the table. You can all go back to managing just fine without me." Eleanor gripped the edge of the table. "Elara, you don't understand. If you stop those payments, what? What, Mother, if I stop those payments? You get evicted. The lights get turned off. Reese can't drive to work. Serafina can't use the internet for her PDA organizing." I looked around the table. Funny how quickly my meaningless money became essential, isn't it? Serafina shook her head. "This isn't fair. You're punishing all of us because your feelings got hurt." "My feelings got hurt?" I laughed, a raw, humorless sound. "Serafina, I've been sending over $2,000 a month to this family for years. That's tens of thousands I've contributed to keeping this family afloat. I did it quietly, without fanfare, without asking for gratitude or recognition. 4 years, she had carried an invisible burden, a phrase she'd once highlighted from an insightful article about familial support, describing the profound emotional and financial labor borne by individuals whose contributions are consistently overlooked in their quest for acceptance. I did it because when Mother called me crying about the medical bills and the house situation, I couldn't stand the thought of her being scared or homeless or going without food. Beatrice was starting to cry. "We didn't know." "You didn't know because you didn't want to know," I said. "It was easier to let me be the bad daughter who moved away and forgot about her family than to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, the bad daughter was the one keeping this family from falling apart financially." Reese finally found his voice. "Elara, I had no idea about any of this. If you'd known what, Reese? You would have thanked me? You would have told Serafina and Beatrice to treat me with respect? You would have made sure I had a proper chair at dinner." He had no answer. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice calm and clear. "I'm going to my hotel. Yes, I have a hotel room, because I learned years ago not to assume I was welcome to stay in this house overnight. Tomorrow, I'm flying back to Chicago, and you all are going to figure out how to pay your own bills like the independent, capable adults you've been telling me you are." Eleanor was crying now, but her tears no longer moved me the way they once would have. Elara, please. We can talk about this. We can work something out. Work what out, Mother? You've made it very clear that my money doesn't earn me respect, that my success doesn't matter, that my efforts to help this family were manipulative and unwelcome. So now you don't have to worry about any of it anymore. I stood, gathering my purse and coat. The rent is due on the 1st of next month. That's a few days from now. The electric bill is usually due around the 15th. You'll want to call them to set up payment arrangements. Serafina looked desperate. Elara, we can't cover all of those expenses. You know we can't. Then I guess you'll have to do what I did, I said. Figure it out. Get creative. Work harder. Sacrifice some things you want for things you need. You know, show some of that family devotion and practical wisdom you've been lecturing me about all evening. I walked toward the front door. Eleanor followed, grabbing my arm. Elara, don't leave like this. Don't destroy this family over pride. I turned to look at her, this woman who had shaped so much of my self-doubt and desperate need for approval. I'm not destroying anything, Mother. I'm just stopping the destruction of myself. I drove to the downtown hotel in silence, my hand shaking slightly as I gripped the steering wheel. The luxurious room felt like a sanctuary after the emotional battlefield I'd just escaped. I ordered room service, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat by the window, looking out at the city lights of my hometown. My phone began to ring around 10. Eleanor. I let it go to voicemail. Then Serafina. Voicemail. Beatrice Reese. Even Lyra, who barely knew me, tried calling. I turned off my phone and took a long, hot bath, trying to process the seismic shift that had just occurred. The next morning, I changed my flight to an earlier time and was back in Chicago by noon. I spent the weekend in my apartment, alternating between feeling profoundly liberated and terribly guilty. Had I done the right thing? Had I been too harsh? Had I just destroyed my relationship with my family forever? Work on Monday brought a dose of reality. Projects to focus on, a team to manage, deadlines to meet. It felt good to be back in an environment where my contributions were valued, where my opinions mattered, where I had earned my place through merit rather than biology. But Tuesday evening my phone rang. Eleanor. This time I answered. Elara. Her voice was small, uncertain. Hi, Mother. Can we talk? I mean really talk. I waited. I went to the bank today, she continued. I tried to set up payments for the rent and utilities. They told me what the monthly amounts would be. She paused, and I could hear her soft crying. I had no idea it was so much. I had no idea what you were covering. I remained silent. Beatrice and Serafina came over this afternoon. We sat down with all the bills, tried to figure out how to manage them between the four of us. Even with everyone contributing, it's going to be tight. Really tight. Mother, no, let me finish. I need to say this. She took a shaky breath. I was angry at you for the wrong reasons. I was angry because I felt helpless, because I couldn't take care of my own family the way I used to, because I had to depend on someone, and I chose to depend on the child who lived farthest away instead of asking the ones who were right here. Tears began in my own eyes. I was embarrassed, she continued. Embarrassed that I couldn't manage on my own. Embarrassed that I needed help. Embarrassed that the daughter I'd been hardest on was the one taking care of me. And instead of being grateful, I made you feel like your help wasn't good enough, like you weren't good enough. We were both crying now. I'm sorry, Elara. I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve any of what happened. You didn't deserve to sit on that awful kitchen stool. You didn't deserve to have your success dismissed. And you certainly didn't deserve to be told you don't belong in this family. You're the one who's been holding this family together. And I was too proud and too scared to admit it. I wiped my eyes. Mother, I never wanted to make you feel helpless. I just wanted to help. I know that now, she said. And I understand why you did what you did. You were protecting yourself, and you had every right to do that. We talked for over an hour, truly talked, perhaps for the first time in years. Eleanor explained the medical bills that had forced her to sell the house, her fear of burdening Serafina and Beatrice, who were already struggling, her assumption that I was wealthy enough that my help didn't truly cost me anything. But it did cost you, didn't it? She asked. Not just the money, but the emotional cost of giving, and giving without any acknowledgement. It did, I admitted. I kept thinking that if I just helped enough, if I just proved myself enough, I'd finally earn a place in this family. But it felt like the more I gave, the more invisible I became. That stops now, Eleanor said firmly. If you're willing to help us work through this financial mess, it's going to be different. No more secrets, no more shame, no more taking your contributions for granted. Over the next few weeks, we held several family meetings, real meetings where everyone's situation was laid out honestly. Serafina admitted her jealousy of my financial success, mixed with resentment. Beatrice acknowledged her dismissiveness, born from a defensive stance about her own choices. Rhys confessed he'd been intimidated by my success, which had made him hesitant to maintain our bond. We worked out a new arrangement. I agreed to continue helping with major expenses, but not to shoulder the entire burden alone. Serafina found a part-time job that accommodated her children's schedules. Beatrice picked up extra shifts. Rhys committed to covering his own car insurance and contributing a set amount monthly to household expenses. More importantly, we established new rules for family interactions. My career and life choices would be respected and celebrated just like everyone else's. Family dinners would always have enough chairs for everyone. Financial discussions would be open and honest, not hidden and shameful. It wasn't perfect immediately. There were setbacks, arguments, moments where old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. But something fundamental had changed. I had learned to set boundaries, to demand respect, to value my own contributions. And my family had learned that love without acknowledgement isn't truly love at all. Months later, when I returned home for Serafina's birthday dinner, a proper chair awaited me at the table. Not just any chair, but the one at Eleanor's right hand, what had always been considered the place of honor. As I sat down, Eleanor squeezed my hand and said, "Thank you for teaching us how to treat you. Thank you for not giving up on us, even when we gave up on ourselves." That dramatic confrontation had taught me that sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to say no. Sometimes you have to be willing to risk a relationship to save it. And sometimes the people who need you the most are the ones who take you for granted the longest. Love without boundaries becomes enabling. Generosity without respect becomes manipulation, even when that's not the intention. And your worth isn't determined by how much you give, but by how much you respect yourself. I learned that I couldn't buy my way into my family's love, but I also learned that I didn't have to. I was worthy of love and respect simply because I was their daughter, their sister, their family member. And if they couldn't see that, then the problem wasn't with me. Ultimately, they could see it. It just took a moment of absolute clarity, a willingness to walk away, and the courage to demand better for myself before they could learn to give it.